please don't skip this video. If these words touch your heart, take a moment to subscribe, like, and share. By doing so, you're helping spread the word of Jesus and reach someone who is waiting for hope today. Stay with us until the end. God may have a special message, a blessing, or an answer to your prayers just for you. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. May God bless you abundantly, fill your life with His peace, and answer the desires of your heart. Amen.
All right, today we're jumping into the Book of Deuteronomy. And look, I know what you might be thinking, a book of laws, right? But forget that for a second. We're going to look at this book for what it really is, one of the most powerful and honestly, one of the most important farewell speeches ever given.
No, really, just imagine that for a moment. You've led your people for 40 years, through the desert, through miracles, through rebellion. You are standing right on the finish line. But you know you're not going to be the one to cross it. What do you say? What are your final words? Well, that's the exact spot Moses is in, and his answer is the Book of Deuteronomy.
So let's set the scene. The entire nation of Israel is camped out on the plains of Moab. They can literally look across the Jordan River and see the Promised Land. It's right there. Their leader, Moses, is 120 years old. And here's the crucial part. He's not talking to the people who escaped from Egypt. That generation, they're gone. He's speaking to their kids, a whole new generation, getting them ready for a future that he himself will never get to see. Now, what makes Deuteronomy so different is its style. This isn't just another history book or a list of rules like the books that came before it. No, it's basically a series of sermons. Moses isn't just listing off events, he's interpreting them. He's explaining what it all means. This is his final, passionate plea. It's like a manifesto for the soul of the nation, designed to shape their hearts before they ever take a single step into their new home. So, with this one last shot, where does Moses even begin? Well, you might find this surprising. He doesn't start by looking forward. He starts by turning everyone's attention all the way back. He's convinced that to move into the future, they have to first, and I mean really understand their past. And you have to get this timeline to understand who he's talking to. The generation listening to him, they didn't see the Red Sea part. For them, Mount Sinai is just a story their parents told them. Their entire lives have been shaped by the fallout from one single event, the rebellion at Kadesh, where their parents' fear and lack of faith cost them everything. These kids grew up as nomads in the wilderness. Moses needs to make this history feel real to them, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So this history lesson is totally a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's a massive warning. He's basically saying, look at what your parents did, don't you dare make the same mistakes. But on the other hand, it's also this incredible encouragement, because despite all that failure, despite all the rebellion, God's promise never, ever failed. It's still there, it's still waiting for them. Okay, so let's see how this all builds. After reminding them of where they came from, Moses starts to lay out the blueprint for where they're going. He reestablishes the laws that are supposed to define them as a people, as a nation. And at the very center of it all is this idea of the covenant. Now, this is so much more than a contract. Think of it like a sacred relationship, almost like a marriage vow between God and the entire nation. This covenant is their constitution. It defines their relationship with God and, just as importantly, their relationships with each other. Pretty much every single law that follows is just an expression of this one core idea. And what's the foundation for living out that covenant? Well, it's the Ten Commandments. Moses repeats them here, but he frames them not as some random list of do's and don'ts, but as the basic principles for a healthy, functioning society. It's about having a right relationship with God and having right relationships with your neighbors. And then we get this verse. This is known as the Shema, and it is the spiritual heartbeat of this entire book. I mean, Moses basically boils down hundreds of laws into this one single radical command, total all-in love for God. He's making it crystal clear that this isn't about just checking boxes and following rules on the outside. No, it's about the deep, internal orientation of your entire being. And that internal devotion, it had to show up on the outside in a really radical kind of society. The laws in Deuteronomy go way beyond just religious rituals. For example, they commanded farmers not to harvest the very edges of their fields so the poor could come and gather food. They demanded that employers pay their workers at the end of every single day because that day's wage might be all they had to live on. That was the whole point. A right relationship with God had to translate into a just and compassionate community, especially for the most vulnerable. Okay, now we get to the dramatic peak of the whole speech. After laying out the history and after laying out the law, Moses puts a clear, unavoidable choice right in front of the people.
He lays out two paths, and the choice could not be more stark. There's no middle ground. One path is faithfulness to the covenant, which he says leads to blessing, prosperity, peace, life in the land. The other path is disobedience, which leads to curses. We're talking drought, defeat, destruction, and eventually exile from the very land they're about to enter.
But you have to hear this in the right way. This is not just a threat. You can feel the love and the urgency in Moses' voice. He is begging them. This is the plea of a father, of a leader who has poured out his entire life for these people. He's not trying to scare them into obedience. He's passionately inviting them to commit to the path that leads to real flourishing. Choose life, he says, so that you and your children may live.
So finally, Moses' work is almost done, and in his final moments, he takes these very careful, deliberate steps to make sure that his message and the nation itself will continue on long after he's gone.
See, this wasn't some chaotic ending. It was a carefully planned passing of the torch. He publicly commissions Joshua as the next leader. He speaks these prophetic blessings over each of the 12 tribes, kind of shaping their future identity. He even writes a song, a poem, to embed the memory of the covenant deep into their culture. It's only when every single piece is in place for the future that he walks up the mountain, his work finally complete.
120 years old, and he dies right there, overlooking the promised land, a place he guided his people to for decades, but was forbidden to enter himself. It's such a bittersweet, poignant end to an absolutely incredible life. The man who defined an entire era is gone, but his final testament, his last words, they're left behind as the foundation for the whole nation.
And so this ancient farewell speech just echoes down through the centuries, and it lands on us with the same urgent question. Moses didn't frame faithfulness as a checklist of rules to follow. He framed it as a fundamental choice between two ways of living. He called it a choice between life and death. And so his final plea just kind of hangs in the air. What does it mean for us, right here, right now, to truly choose